Hello, listeners, and welcome to Bad Fiction Monday, because it's always Monday when you're reading bad fiction. I'm Shaderaygun.
And I'm Zombo.
And today we have a special treat for everyone, a particularly favorite bad fan fiction that I enjoy.
No. I hate this story so much. Oh, but I love it at the same time.
Known as Space Ninjas. And before I go into my explanation, I just want to point out, if you guys hear something in the background, it might be my cat. He is acting very jealous today.
I'll keep that in mind. Now, Shade, Space Ninjas is a Naruto fanfiction.
It is indeed a Naruto fanfiction, but it's a Naruto crossover fanfiction. And what did they choose to cross?
Oh, please tell me, what are they crossing over with Naruto?
They're crossing over with Warhammer 40,000.
Oh, no.
For those not in
The world of Grimdark is mixing with Naruto.
Yep. For those who don't know about Warhammer 40,000, it is a science fantasy setting. It's primarily done through the medium of a tabletop war game, though has had video games, role-playing games, several iterations, several novels. And
of course, an amazing movie called The Shardies. It's available on YouTube for free.
Exactly.
That's the only movie that's ever been made about Warhammer 40,000.
The only official one, at least, yeah. And it's really great.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We're definitely not going to be talking about any other stories that involve taking a chainsword.
Anyways, for those not in the know, Warhammer 40,000, like I said, science fantasy. It's in the line of stuff like Doom. It's like, as we mentioned, grimdark. It's basically anything that could have happened wrong in humanity going to space did go wrong. Humanity's under the control of an authoritarian, theocratic, semi-broken, often incompetent government that is constantly at war with several alien species, many of which are modeled after your traditional fantasy races. So there are
So you got your orcs who are giant, crazy mushroom men who turn the dumbest things into killer weapons and drive around big vehicles and paint them red because red goes faster. Whoa!
There's the Eldari, who are split into several sub-factions, such as the Asuryani, the Yanari, and the Drukari, but the...
Don't forget the Harlequins.
And the Harlequins. But the Eldari are modeled after elves. And Drukari are dark elves. Asuryani are sort of your high elves. There's Exodites who are wood elves. And there's Harlequins, which are just weird and clowns.
My favorite way, if anybody's not really familiar with the universe of Warhammer 40,000, if you've ever seen the movie, or if you've ever seen the movie Starship Troopers or read Dune, both of those, well, Starship Troopers is basically the Imperial Guard encountering the Tyranids, whereas the book Dune was actually a huge inspiration for Warhammer 40,000.
Warhammer 40,000, in fact, pulls from a lot of sources, but Dune is one of its primary major ones. And it's not just all fantasy races. Zombo, as you heard, mentioned the Tyranids, and they're actually
I didn't mention the Tyranid.
Yeah, you did. You said.
Well, I guess, yeah. Oh, yeah, when I was talking about Starship Troopers.
Tyranids are a hive mind race that devour everything. I'd say like the Zerg, but that's wrong because the Zerg are like them. The Tyranids came first.
Yeah. The Tyranids, I believe, are based on like H.R. Geiger type of art.
A mix of H.R. Geiger and the bugs from Starship Troopers, the novel. Because 40K came out way before a lot of things. It's pre-Halo, pre-Gears of War, pre-StarCraft.
When you think Starship Troopers, like they talk about Space Marines. When you think Space Marines from like Doom or Duke Nukem or every video game that's done Space Marines, they're basically drawing off of the aesthetic of Warhammer 40,000.
Now, it is important to note...
Your 8-foot tall Superman, you got your that are flinging mind bolts and blowing people up with giant rocket-powered bolter rounds. And
Now, it's important to note that they take the aesthetic, but often not the spirit of Warhammer 40,000, because Warhammer 40,000 Space Marines are closer to knights than they are what you might think of a space, like a military space marine.
I'd say more monks, like
monks,
battle monks.
Yeah, they wear they'll wear very decorated power armor that has, archaic looking relics adorning it. They're not all religious, but they have sort of a holy air to them, where they will speak in very eloquent speech. Their battle cries are stuff like, "We are the wrath of the righteous," and they don't.
And one other thing that most universes that imp or ape or copy or pay homage to for the Warhammer 40,000, one thing that often gets missed is that the 41st millennium sucks. Space Marines are, sure, they're 8-foot tall transhuman supermen that have been modified for and lived for hundreds of years and are smiting the Emperor's finest, or the Emperor's enemies. But you also got to remember, most of humanity, I can't say most of humanity, but a large portion of humanity lives in cramped hive worlds that are just overdeveloped and rampant with crime. You got the Tyranids, who are just incredibly intelligent monsters eating everything. The orcs live to fight, and they don't care who they fight, so they will murder entire planets of people. You got Necrons, who are basically space Egyptian Terminators. You got the Traitors Forces of Chaos, who exist to try to murder everyone and or torture them and or
destroy reality.
Violent.
Yeah.
The 41st millennium sucks. The Space Marines are like one of their last bastions of hope.
And even then, the Space Marines, depending on the chapter, which is their groupings, could be brutal. There's a chapter called, like, the Flesh Eaters, who actually eat or Flesh Terrors. I
was about to say Flesh Terrors.
Yeah, there's chapters that will eat people. There's the Marines Malevolent, who don't care about humans and will slaughter. They will bombard a planet to kill like 2 demons on it. Demons are a thing in Warhammer 40k. They're arguably them and the Tyranids. Chaos and the Tyranids are kind of go back and forth as being the main threats. Chaos.
Well,
demons.
there's also Necrons and.
Well, Necrons are not.
One other thing to keep in mind: there's no good faction in Warhammer 40,000. Every single one of them has shades of gray. Like, you got the Imperial Guard, they're humanity's finest soldiers, and they're terribly funded. They are basically just a killing field. You think that episode of Futurama where Zap Brannigan talks about how he overloaded the Killbots' kill counters with his by sending waves of troops into them, and once they hit their kill limit, they shut down. That is how the Imperial Guard do.
Here's an excellent example. 40k has something like droids from Star Wars called servitors. But the difference is whereas droids are entirely mechanical and machines built from the ground up, servitors are machines inserted into lobotomized humans and turned into basically slaves. And these are often people who, it could be murderers, it could be rapists, terrible people, but sometimes it's a minor crime like you insulted the planetary governor or you fell unconscious during your 18-hour workday and made the fact.
And sometimes it's not even that. It's just the Martian tech priest nerds just needed some new servitors. So they're just like, hey, we're going to take these guys.
And for all you Naruto nerds out there who might be like wondering still for whatever reason why this is a bad crossover and why these settings are incompatible, I'm not saying everyone can do it. But there are several people in Warhammer 40,000 who could murder the shit out of Madara Uchiha.
Now, which version of Madara Uchiha are we talking about?
Yes, because Magnus could kill all of them.
Whilst still doing nothing wrong.
Yeah. I mean, let's think about this. Emperor, easy. Magnus, yes. Doom of Malantai, easy. For sure.
Any Eldar?
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of the Eldar could do it. Swarmlord, definitely.
Yeah.
Chaos,
So
greater demons could do it.
what we're trying to impress upon you is that the 41st millennium world sucks. It is grim, it is dark, it is brutal, it is horrible. In contrast, the world of Naruto is a prototypical shonen. So, will these universes merge together very well? Well, Shade, how about you read the description of this story?
I'd be glad to. Space Ninjas by Swordman 600. The mighty Firehawk Space Marines have made it out of the warp. Period. Lowercase b with no space between the period and the b that starts the next word. But dot dot dot. Where are they? And why does this planet look like old Earth?
For the record, the planet is called Terra in the 41st millennium. It's not Earth.
And I'm pretty sure the planet of Naruto looks nothing like Terra.
It really doesn't.
T, but may change, and a Naru / question mark. Warhammer 40k X over. Rated fiction T. English adventure. Naruto universe. Chapters 8. We're going to be reading 1, maybe 2. We'll see.
And we do intend, this is one of the first ones that I specifically am pushing Shade. I really want to read this entire thing for Bad Fiction Monday, because this story, more people need to be aware of the story of Space Ninjas.
It's the right kind of bad. Words 8,942. Reviews 54. Faves 36. Follows 45. Published June 26, 2008. Updated September 25th, 2010.
It's almost 10 years old, my god.
This is on fanfiction.net. This actually was published before I got into Warhammer 40,000, because I got into it in 2011.
And I've been into it since 2016. I currently have 8 armies. Shade, you have, I think,
I have 2.
4?
I have 2 and some kill team stuff. I have a lot of side bits. I mainly focus on my Tyranids and my Gene Stealer cults.
Yeah, but you also have your Eldar.
My Eldar's not up to army capacity. I have like 2 HQs.
I mean, you have a couple HQs. You have at least one.
I have 2 HQs and 2
choice.
I have 2 HQs, a troop choice, and an elite choice. I need to work.
Well, you just need one more troops choice, and you'll have a full army.
That's fair.
Yeah, I meanwhile have Tyranids, Gene Stealer cults, Blood Ravens, Fallen, Thousand Suns, Imperial Guard, Drukhari, the Dark Eldar, and I'm just starting up my Necrons now.
I got Zombo into this hobby, or at least I pushed him into it, but I am much slower in terms of progress than him.
Meanwhile, I get into things and I get addicted.
I also tend to, I pick a codex, an army, and I keep building onto it, whereas he tends to have an idea of a preset, what he wants to work out, and then stop at a certain point. Is that not incorrect?
Kind of, sort of. I have an idea of what I want to do with my army, and I will get it to a point where I can play it at like a tournament size, like a 2,000 point list. And once I get there, if I still want to get more models for it, I'll get more models, but then I'll usually get interested in another army, and I'll start that other army.
Whereas with my armies, I want to have like one of every model for it, and then add on more. I just like to keep building. Anyways, we have delayed enough. Let us get to the story.
We have delayed enough, because I'm excited for this.
Disclaimer. Don't own Naruto or Warhammer 40k, and if I did, I wouldn't be making this. Disclaimer.
No period.
Disclaimer. Don't own Naruto or Warhammer 40k, and if I did, I wouldn't be making this. That was indeed repeated twice, folks. What if the Firehawk Space Marines weren't lost in the warp storm? What if they were...
By the way, the warp is basically 40k's version of hell that is also used for interplanetary travel.
Yeah, so basically the warp is where demons and the chaos gods live, but in order to achieve faster than light travel for most races, you have to fly through the warp, because traveling like a mile in the warp is like traveling like 1,000 miles in the real world. Now the warp.
So basically, they have to put up special force fields to tear open a hole into hell, travel through hell for a few minutes, and hopefully, because the warp is fucky, hopefully get out of the warp at a normal-ish time instead of going back in time, going forward in time, spending years in the warp.
Yeah, the warp can be a fickle thing. You could go travel a route through the warp that normally takes like 2 months, and then one time a ship will do it, and they'll go into it, and they'll come out, and they'll have arrived 1,000 years before they left.
So what they're saying is these Firehawk Space Marines. I think the Firehawks are an actual chapter.
Yes, they're
Firehawks. They got lost
Firehawks
in a warp storm.
Firehawks.
So a giant storm of hell energy. I guess swallowed up the Firehawk Space Marine chapter.
If I recall, the Firehawks are hinted to be the Legion of the Damned, which in Warhammer 40k...
No, that is that the Firehawks?
Yeah, because the Firehawks
might be the Firehawks.
The Firehawks
right.
had a mutation because they were part of the Cursed Founding, where they would catch fire, but it wouldn't hurt them.
Yeah, so they're just these super loyal, super awesome Space Marines running around on fire.
And then the Legion of the Damned are these mysterious Space Marines that show up out of the warp. They're skeletons and on fire constantly, and they show up whenever a Space Marine chapter is in their most dire of need. So
they're basically Space Marine demons, except they're loyal demons that come in, murder a bunch of people, murder the enemies of the Emperor, and then disappear back into the warp.
And rattle.
Spooky.
I literally read a novel about the Legion of the Damned, and apparently they just chatter constantly. They are constantly shaking, and there's some pretty spooky skeletons. Anyways, what if the Firehawk Space Marines weren't lost in the warp? What if they were warped to another galaxy? And what if they landed on the world of ninjas? I already have a problem because this should be another universe, not another galaxy.
The warp.
Alright, well, we got to go through the difference between talking and calm chatter and thinking, because this author uses...
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily, because it's not going to translate into our onto our descriptions.
Fair enough. The whole chapter made it out of the warp at long last. The whole trip was something too real. Ironic, being that the warp is unreality. Being attacked by demons so harshly that the chapter master thought they would be corrupted.
There are too many incomplete sentences here already. Oh, I'm already getting annoyed.
Their capital ship was badly damaged. It was so damaged, you would wonder how it was still flying in one piece. Or maybe it's going through the Grand Line. The chapter master...
So they're saying...
Oh, go ahead.
It's a capital ship.
Which...
So, capital ships are huge.
Oh, yeah. For Space Marines, a capital ship would be a battle barge. Which... We'll get into the size a little bit, but let me just... I'll say this now. Battle barges would make Star Destroyers look tiny.
They're designed to stay in space.
Oh, yes. The chapter master sighed in relief that the chapter mad it out alive mostly, but remembered the fallen ships he lost in the warp.
Did someone say fallen?
I don't see any Dark Angels around here.
Okay. We got to keep the talking about the fallen quiet.
Exactly. We don't want to get killed by any totally loyal Space Marines.
I want a damage assessment now. Contact all fleet members and find a suitable planet to land and make repairs.
Okay. Immediate problem. Battle barges cannot land. They're designed to stay in space. They're huge. There is one book I read where a battle barge lands on a planet, and it's basically irrevocably damaged at that point. And I don't say land, it crashed. It was damaged, and it had to crash land on a planet.
It fell with style.
Exactly. So, no, a battle barge would never land. A few pilots.
I have no idea. Pilots?
Yeah, pilots.
What is that word? Is that? Do you think that's supposed to be pilots?
I think it's supposed to be pilots, but it's spelled like toilets, but with a P instead of a T at the front. So, pilots started typing on some keyboards and started searching planets for life. but when they started looking at planets, they felt something was off.
Sir, I found a planet to go to, but it looks oddly familiar.
One crewman said.
Yeah, it has some features Mighty Terra had back in the old days before the Mighty Emperor.
Another crewman said quickly. Okay.
And there's a problem for me. Another, like, we talked about how crappy the 41st millennium is. So, Shade was talking earlier about how they have robots called servitors. The reason they make servitors out of people is because they tried to make artificial intelligence once. It went crazy and tried murdering everyone.
Because it got possessed by demons.
Yeah. As a result of the Men of Iron incursion, they lost pretty much all of their information that they had on records. Combine that with the destruction of most information from the Dark Age of technology, and nobody alive today, save for the Emperor, would remember or even know what old Terra would look like.
Now you might say, oh, how different could the planet look? And the answer is very. Terra no longer has oceans. Asia has pretty much been converted into one giant, massive palace, the center of which is Mount Everest, where the Emperor...
Which is a giant golden throne.
Yeah, a giant... It's Mount Everest is now stairs leading up the golden throne, where the corpse of the Emperor lies. The Emperor...
Hey, he's not a corpse. He's totally alive.
The Emperor is the object of worship of the Imperium. Like I said, they're a theocracy. The God Emperor of mankind, who 10,000 years ago was struck down by his previously most favorite son, Horus, in what was known as the Horus Heresy. Nonetheless, there is no way they would tell that is what Old Terra looked like.
Yeah, nobody would know what Old Terra looked like.
Terra is mostly buildings and wasteland and little else.
Mm-hmm.
The chapter master sighed. Oh, and actually one more thing. Most people don't go to Terra. As a matter of fact, say it's pretty rare for a chapter master to have visited Terra, depending on the chapter. But space travel takes a long time, and there are people who spend not their lives, but generations of their family making a pilgrimage to Terra.
As in one person goes, and 400 years later, they finally get approval and get through the warp to Terra.
Or they just go from planet to planet to planet to planet, because this isn't Star Wars where you can just casually hire a ship to go space travel. Most people in Warhammer 40k will never leave their home planet.
Yeah. And for Space Marines, like, Terra is the single most fortified place in the entire in the entire galaxy. If Space Marines don't have need to go to Terra, they will never go to Terra.
So, yeah, I doubt any of these guys even have seen Terra themselves. Anyways.
Yeah, let alone Old Terra.
The chapter master sighed again. There weren't that many planets that had the same features as Terra. But this is a different story.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are.
I mean, modern Terra.
Holy crap.
There are several.
If we're talking Old Terra, like, that's every single Agar world.
Yeah, pretty much. Or several feudal worlds, or, primitive worlds, or hell, some death worlds would probably, from orbit, look like Terra.
And if we're talking modern Terra, then every single Hive world.
Exactly. Hive worlds are basically worlds that are centered around several cities, but these aren't cities that, like you'd think. They're basically massive towers. Think New York.
I was gonna say think Coruscant from Star Wars.
Except it's all like one building. It wouldn't be like several buildings. It's just an increasingly tall tower with smaller buildings in it. The planets in the Crow's World subsector had no planets like Terra. They were either barren or had too many jungles, wrong form of two. Chapter Master Dalles looked at the screen showing the planet. That is a terrible Space Marine name.
Yeah, it's pretty crappy. You got your Latin names, you got your Jewish Kabbalah references. you got Chapter Master Dallas.
I bet all the other chapter masters make fun of him.
I don't care what it is. We are way off course. Wrong course there. Our ships are badly damaged, and we need to land to make repairs so we can head out.
Said, now getting irritated, forgetting to put the person's name there.
And get me a comlink with every other ship and let them know where to go.
Dallas finished. Okay, first off, it's not comlink, it's voxlink. There's some different...
I was thinking that was wrong, yeah.
There's some different lingo in Warhammer 40k. Like, they don't have computers, they have cogitators. You don't have, what's it called? You don't have coffee, you have recaf. And you don't have...
You don't have tactical retreats, you have blams.
And you don't have comlinks, you have voxes. The crewmen started working for a few seconds and established the com, spelled in all caps with underlines.
This is Chapter Master Dallas, informing all fleet personnel. Personal, not personnel, personal. We are going to head to that blue planet over there to make quick repairs. I want all fleet ships to follow in suit or help with the repairs.
I like how it's the reverse of nothing personnel.
It really is. Copy that. May the Emperor guide us.
Numeric 1 of the ships replied. And now, with no transition whatsoever, Naruto...
Wow, that's just jarring.
Naruto sat on the swing set after failing the Genin exams for the umpteenth time and saw really depressed. He's
looking at Sasuke.
He sat and watched all the other kids meet their parents, wrong form of their, and get congratulated on their job well done in passing. He sat there wishing he had parents to love him like all the other kids and their parents, and that's the right form of their. But with all this, he almost forgot the other test that Mizuki said Naruto could do. Take the Forbidden Scroll, learn a jutsu, and he would become a genin. As he made his way to the Hokage's without an apostrophe S office to get the scroll in the shadows, Mizuki was smiling to himself. Okay, so we're episode 1 Naruto.
Yep. And I just want to say at this point, once upon a time, I was a huge Naruto fan. I'm not going to get into details about how much of a big Naruto fan I was, and Shade, don't you dare.
I won't.
But I was a huge fan, and reading this, I'm actually feeling nostalgic because I remember getting super excited reading this part. But man, I'm already like, holy crap, this is terribly written.
I watched Naruto up to the end of the first series, but I didn't really watch much of Shippuden until recently. I liked it as a kid, but my opinion has significantly dropped.
I got super invested into it when I was like 12.
Oh, I mean,
so
I was invested.
No, I mean like this is
kid.
before the anime was even around in the West. So I was reading in Shonen Jump monthly and getting super excited for it. And then the anime came out, and I was just like, "Yeah, the anime, it's awesome!" But they're mispronouncing Sasuke and Sakura. But
Sasuke.
no, I'm like, I mean, I didn't know how to. I was 12 and in the West,
That's
and
fair.
that wasn't exactly
It's
a common
fair.
name.
It's fair. I'm just kidding.
If Naruto does this, then I can get the scroll to myself, and no one will do anything about it.
As he sees Naruto run off with the scroll, Mizuki heads off to the Hokage to let him know what Naruto has done. Does Mizuki ever come up again in Naruto?
In a filler episode.
Interesting. Alright, here's one of my favorite parts. The fleet of 3 ships made it down into a forest, hoping to hide themselves.
Shade, you looked this up for us beforehand.
Yes.
How big are battle barges?
Well, in terms of length, they're 8.2 kilometers. Height I couldn't find, but just based off this image, I'm going to say they're probably somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 kilometers.
Yeah. Battle barges are big.
Huge.
Like we're saying they're not meant to land on any planet.
This forest is flat now.
Yeah.
Also,
and probably on fire.
And also, every ninja on the continent has seen this ship land.
Yeah.
Oh,
here comes my favorite part in the next paragraph.
Oh, yes. And here's the next best part. As the ships landed, several drop pods were launched for Marines to scout out the area. The Marines were in teams of 3, numeric 3, and as numeric 1 party was scouting, they saw a young boy in a clearing next to a shack and decided to observe the people. Okay, several problems here.
First off, drop pods. They are they're mechanisms designed for Space Marines to easier survive re-entry. Like, they can survive re-entry on their own. Like, their armor is nonsense, and their durability is even crazier.
They would survive the fall, but on landing, they might take some, a broken arm or something, which isn't too much of a problem for Space Marine, but they want to land at full combat. Drop pods are basically, they load, 10 Space Marines into something and shoot it down at a planet.
Yeah, so they come down, they hit the ground with a massive impact. The drop pods aren't exactly cushioned or anything like that, but Marines don't need to worry about that. So, takeaway here, drop pods are designed to launch Marines from orbit. So we now have this 8-kilometer long ship shooting drop pods effectively at the speed of a gun at the ground.
So in essence, these drop pod bay doors opened up, and then these drop pods dropped 1.5 meters. Probably not enough to even open their doors. Those Marines are stuck in there.
It's like jumping off the top of a 3-story building and deploying a parachute.
And second off, that thing I read was all one sentence when it was clearly supposed to be 2 or 3. This is not a good fan fiction.
No, I think the writer probably got interested in the models, learned some very basics, and then went, yeah, I can write a fan fiction like this.
As they watched, they noticed he was putting his hands in weird positions. The Space Marines would immediately shoot him.
Yep.
What?
Suffer not the witch.
Honestly, take a shot, folks, each time the Space Marines would have immediately shot Naruto.
Yep, so right there's one.
One Marine went around to try to get a better look of the scroll, and he noticed that the scroll talking about weird spells called jutsus, which would have led the Space Marines to immediately... That's
sorcery right there.
Yeah, which would have led the Space Marines to immediately shoot Naruto. Witches are not allowed.
And burn the scroll.
Yes.
And burn the scroll.
Possibly at the same time. One of them is probably as a flamer.
I mean, even just shooting it with a bolter would probably mess up that scroll.
As time passed, the Marines were surprised at the boy. With the stuff he was learning, the boy was able to make solid clones of him for a short period of time, a clear indication of witchcraft which would have led them to shoot him. After hours of training, another man jumped out in front of the boy.
Naruto, what the hell are you doing?
The man shouted at the top of his lungs.
Hey, Iruka-sensei, I did it. Now do I pass?
Naruto replied. Replied? Yes, replied.
There we go. What are you talking about?
The man wounded. How do you wonder something out line? Which I'm guessing they meant wonder. But how do you wonder something out loud?
Well, I mean, that's that. If it was just wondered, I'd be okay with that, because that's just they're again talking about what we were talking about in our last episode. He's trying to use a thesaurus to say more than just said.
That wasn't.
I'm okay with wondered, but that he just misspelled it really badly.
He should have really done questioned or interrogated there, based off the tone of the conversation.
Yeah. Mizuki-sensei said if I learned a jutsu from the scroll, then I would become a genin.
Naruto said quickly, prompting the Marines to probably shoot him again.
Mm-hmm.
The Marines knew quickly that the boy might be used to get that scroll, so the Marines started to get ready to go in. Maybe these are Chaos Marines. Maybe their time in the warp has made them,
No, if these are the Firehawks, though, they were super loyal.
That's true. That's true. Just then, a large shuriken went through the air and was aimed for the boy. Fucking Eldar.
Oh, now they're allied with the Eldar, so yeah, Marines are blaming again.
Iruka saw this and got in front of the bay to protect the boy. As the shuriken...
Sick.
By the way, if you're running the Eldar joke, Eldar basic weaponry are called shuriken catapults, and instead of shooting bullets, they shoot really tiny shurikens that kill people.
That shred.
Yeah.
That shred people.
It's actually pretty interesting. Eldar, like, ammo isn't, like, bullets. It's basically they put a chunk of metal, and their gun, like, shaves off bits of it into shurikens and shoots them. And not like a chunk of metal, it's like a chunk of stone or something. But point being, it's not a traditional clip. As the shuriken hit, Iruka Mizuki came out and started laughing.
Naruto, don't listen to Iruka. He just wants the scroll to use it for his own gain.
Mizuki lied.
What do you mean?
Naruto said, getting scared.
Iruka wants that scroll and use it for himself.
Mizukin lied again. After a few minutes talking, and Mizuki saying that Naruto has a demon sealed in him, the Marines immediately set fire to the place and killed everyone.
Yeah. The one thing that Marines don't do, ever, not ever, once in any case ever, is allow demons to exist.
Let me put it like this, folks. The existence of demons is such a harshly kept secret in Warhammer 40k that basic Space Marines, if they fight demons, get their minds wiped of everything except for the fact that demons exist.
Meanwhile, if a guard squad manages to fight off a demon and survive, they get castrated and put into a death camp.
If they're lucky, because most of them will just be killed on the spot or turned into servitors.
Yeah.
So,
and villages that get exposed to like civilians that get exposed, they just get killed off.
There are Imperial Inquisitors who, upon hearing that there is one demon on a planet, will destroy the planet.
Now, the validity of an Exterminatus is kind of up in the air, but yes, Exterminatus is just, they push the big old end everything button.
Yeah, Warhammer 40k is not Star Wars, where blowing up a planet's a very shocking war crimey thing. It happens, maybe once every other month.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
By the name of the Emperor, kill the heretic!
Oh, I wasn't done reading that sentence.
Sorry.
After a few minutes talking, and Mizuki saying that Naruto has a demon sealed in him, the Marines...
Oh, they misspelled demon there.
Yep. The Marines saw Mizuki get ready to kill the boy and Iruka, which they congratulated for killing a demon-possessed person.
And since they already knew Naruto was also a witch.
Yeah.
By the name of the Emperor, kill the heretic!
The leader of the party said. The numeric 3 people were shocked. Numeric 3 armored figures came out of hiding and started to surround the numeric 3 people.
Now here's another thing. Marines, despite the fact that they're 8 to 9 feet tall, are weirdly good at stealth. So I'm not necessarily surprised that they're able to hide against Naruto ninjas, but I like that they're just shocked that 3 armored figures are coming in, and not the fact that it's 3 armored figures that are twice their height and wielding giant guns that they've never seen before.
Now, Zombo, I might be tempted to agree with you that Space Marines can be plenty stealthy, but here's the problem. This, and I'm going to send this to you over Discord, this is what the Firehawk's armor looks like.
You know what? The next paragraph, they're actually going to be describing the Firehawks.
Yeah, true enough. Vate armor was like nothing they have ever seen. They spelled there with a T. The armor was yellow, with flamer for a trim, and all the shoulder pads was some sort of mushroom cloud. So yeah, guys in yellow and red armor in the middle of a forest snuck up on these guys.
I mean, Naruto's a ninja. What does Naruto wear in Series 1?
Orange.
Or bright-ass orange and bright-ass blue.
That's fair.
And apparently he's an effective ninja.
Zombo, realistically, 3 tactical marines ambush early, episode 1 Naruto, Iruka, and Mizuki. How dead are they? The ninjas, I mean.
I mean, one tactical marine could probably wipe out the entire Naruto universe.
Damn.
Right up until, like, Endgame, where you got reality warpers like the Uchiha and Naruto being his bullshit sage mode.
You don't feel like Orochimaru could kill a tactical marine?
No.
Huh. Mizuki started to get afraid because he knew these people were talking about him.
In the name of the Firehawks and the mighty Emperor himself, die now!
A marine said while firing some weird weapon before shooting himself because he said the Emperor with a lowercase e, which is heresy.
Yep. Oh, and let me describe a standard Marine's bolt gun. Where most of us think of a gun, they think, a 45, a 60, even like a hunting rifle, an AR-15. You're firing pretty decent sized weapons, right? An armor-piercing round is going to be fired at a high velocity with a high spin with a tip that's going to penetrate body armor.
Space Marine weapons don't do that. They take a step further.
They're rocket propelled. Each bolter round is rocket propelled, and they just use sheer size and velocity, thanks to the rocket propulsion, to just punch through any armor. And then once inside the armor, the rounds detonate.
Yep, they are mass reactive, which means they detect when they're surrounded by a sufficient amount of mass and blow up. And these are 75 caliber bullets.
Yeah.
These are basically rocket launchers that have rapid fire.
So basically, one round, Mizuki is paced.
Mizuki tried desperately to escape, but to no use. He was cut down so quickly that he didn't even know he died.
You know what? Accurate.
After the deed was done, the Marines turned to Naruto. Oh, and actually, before you Naruto guys are like, oh, he's too fast, he would dodge it. No, Space Marines have superhuman reflexes, basically have targeting reticules in their eyes. They have so many genetic enhancements, they would be able to track it.
Yeah. Think of how Sasuke was starting to be able to track people moving faster than eye movement. That is your typical Eldar. Marines can single-handedly take on squads of Eldar. I mean, the Eldar don't like to think so, but...
Oh, it also depends on the Eldar. You get some Howling Banshees in there, and the Marines are going to be kind of screwed if they're up close.
Yeah. How fast is Jane Czar, the leader of the Howling Banshees?
Jane Czar is so fast that a Space Marine once mistook her approaching footsteps for rain on the ceiling of a building. And not just like drizzle. He thought it was storming outside because she was running that fast.
And they track people like this. So, yeah.
Iruka, noticing this, got in front of him, yelling,
"You will not harm him at all, or you will die."
At which point the Marines immediately shot Iruka. The Marines stood there for a few seconds until one spoke up.
We don't mean you any harm at all.
And then
they lied, immediately shooting them. Oh man, what a mouthful. Well, I hope you guys like it for now. Just let me know what you think of it. It's my first attempt after all. That explains a lot. I won't accept flames. Just give me some ideas and I'll post the response in the next chapter. By the way, named the chapter master Dallas because online there is no record of who the current chapter master is. See ya all. I'll try to update regularly. There's no record because the Firehawks were lost in the warp, you moron.
Yeah. So that last that last bit was author commentary, and I think we're gonna end the episode here after one chapter, just because we're kind of running long. Shade and I figured we were gonna have a lot to say, and obviously we did. I
just want to bring up the chapter master of the Firehawks is known, or at least the last known one. His name is Stibor Lazarek, which is a proper Space Marine name.
Mm-hmm. But this last bit brings up something that just infuriates me every single time I see it. I won't accept flames. There's this idea that especially a lot of newer writers and newer artists have, that constructive criticism can only ever be positive.
Or it's positive with one other thing, like, oh, I think you did a good job, really good job saying down the characters. I think you need to clean up your grammar in a few spaces.
But even then, a lot of people will say that's flaming. Now, when you're talking about giving criticism, just saying this sucks, you're an idiot, that's not criticism. That is flaming. But if he's asking for input, but then saying he's not accepting flames, this is him basically saying he does not want people to tell him what's wrong with his writing. When you are writing something new, you need to be able to accept that your writing is going to have just some absolute messes to it. And at some point, I want to read one of my old fan fiction on Bad Fiction Monday, because it came from a time where I didn't know better. My writing was garbage. Like, I sent Shade one of my old fan fictions, and it's one I was actually kind of proud of. I read it now, and it's kind of crap. But I have written much worse.
Now, accepting criticism is important for authors, but I think my advice for authors based off of this is, before you do any kind of crossover or really launch into the universe of something, do research, and do sufficient research. Double check things. Because while it's clear the author had basically everything right Naruto-wise, I didn't see any major canon conflicts.
No, not really.
He had...
I mean, the timeline of episode 1 was kind of messed up. You know, Naruto already knowing about the scroll, when he was sitting on the swing set, everything of him taking the scroll, but...
That's an acceptable change.
Yeah, but those are minutia.
So many things of Warhammer 40k are wrong here. And it's not even like, oh, that's a very minor thing referenced once. Basics. Mm-hmm. Space Marines hearing...
This is like the Ultramarines movie where these fresh recruits who just got out of the scouting program are now tactical Marines.
You ruined my joke, and I'm mad.
I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, in summary, this isn't the worst Warhammer 40k fanfiction I've seen. And then I was going to start talking about the Ultramarine movie. I had that joke planned for like a week, and you have ruined it. I'm so mad. You ruined it.
You know what? No, you know what, Shade? That joke still stands. Despite how bad this story is, you're right.
Can we play along with it
and
pretend that it worked off? Because I want to go with this.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, Zombo, I have to say this was pretty bad, but it wasn't the worst Warhammer fan fiction I've ever seen.
What would be the worst Warhammer fiction you've ever seen, Shade?
I mean, it was just this one weird fan film. It was kind of, the animation was, good for a fan effort, but, it looked like a PlayStation 1 game. And there was just so much wrong. I mean, so get this. It follows the Ultramarines, the second company, and has the chapter master not Cato Sicarius, for one thing.
Of course.
And he goes down to investigate this planet with a squad of Marines. A captain going down with like 10 guys. And these 10 guys...
Now, in that squad of 10 guys, we do see their battle barge, right? And is it super packed with servitors and other recruits and neophytes?
I mean, they have some like chapter serfs, but it was actually pretty much mostly empty. I think that's the only Space Marines that were in that battle barge. And get this. So this is the second company, right? The Space Marines in there were new recruits, which is wrong.
In the second company.
And they were all tactical Marines, which is wrong. I mean, as we all know,
they wouldn't also have They also wouldn't have sentry studs, would they?
I think a couple of them had sentry studs in them. I mean, for one thing, if you're a tactical Marine, that means you've already gone through the Scout, Devastator, and Assault companies. So jumping ahead is just wrong.
You're not going to be fresh recruits as a tactical Marine. Now, what kind of terribly done fan project would make such a simple mistake like that?
I mean, it gets worse and worse. Like, they fight the Black Legion, and they get surrounded by...
Made of berserkers?
Well, yeah, there's a bunch of corn berserkers for some reason. And the Black Legion, like, these 10,000-year-old veterans of war, go down like chumps to these scouts. I mean, they get shot like once or twice by bolters, and they die.
Chaos indeed.
Chaos indeed. And, I mean, there's just a lot of really weird things. Like, they made a big deal about taking this chainsword. Didn't seem particularly...
Which is a super common weapon in the 41st millennium.
It was a huge deal about who got to hold the banner, on this recon scouting mission. Oh, and the planet they're investigating, turned out there was a company of Imperial Fists there guarding this ancient relic, and the entire company died. Which, a crippling loss to the Imperial Fists. Losing an entire company is not just something that happens.
No.
Also,
now, we keep talking about this. We're dancing around. I mean, we're kind of killing the joke. I already butchered the joke. What garbage writer could have made such a disgusting attempt at writing Space Marines?
You know what? That's a good point. I should look up and see who it is, because I bet it's some nobody. Okay, let me see. Written by Dan Abnett.
That sounds like some sort of crappy writer who would never write anything notable for the 41st millennium ever.
No, and certainly I don't see him getting work in any other fields. Like, I don't even think he's good enough to write comic books.
Okay, jokes aside, has Dan Abnett written comics?
Are you kidding? Dan Abnett's responsible for the Guardians of the Galaxy run that the movie's based off of.
Really?
Yeah, he originated that lineup of the team, and not their full personalities, but sort of what those... Huh. Like, Drax? Drax originally was, like, a Superman-type character where he had super strength, could fly and stuff, and went around the galaxy, but he was also incredibly stupid and, like, just single-minded. And he reworked Drax into a more, dirty fighter, like, using knives, not as super powered, but a much smarter kind of fighter. Whereas old Drax was basically Hulk-level intelligence.
I did not know that. Legit. I mean, I did know Dan Abnett wrote this garbage fan fiction.
Yeah.
But I did not know he wrote comics. I legit did not know that.
Oh, yeah, he's written several comics.
I know Dan Abnett for his work on the Gaunt's Ghosts series of books, where if you're looking to get into the 41st millennium, if the idea of the Imperial Guard, where it's just a bunch of random humans with garbage weapons, garbage gear, fighting off the worst humanity has to face, Gaunt's Ghosts is a great book series to get into.
He also wrote the Eisenhorn trilogy, which is often considered the best Warhammer 40k books around, and another great way to get into the series. He's not always 100% lore accurate, but he tends to be close enough that the few mistakes are forgivable.
Which makes the question why he was involved with the movie Ultramarines, which is what we're talking about, even more perplexing, because the most basic of details is missed. As badly as in this movie, as in this fan fiction.
I can't help but feel like some higher ups probably forced him to do that. We need a squad of
but it couldn't have been GW. It couldn't have been GW higher ups.
Well, that was GW under their old president, and I could believe him.
That's true.
I could believe him doing that. We need
Honestly, the Ultramarines movie, Shade and I watched it together a couple years back, and I had no idea just how bad it was. Shade suggested a drinking game.
we took
Take a shot every time there's a lore inaccuracy. I was smashed within the first 15 minutes of the movie.
like before they really got into the planet.
Yeah.
But it's a fun
So
watch.
that's the. I don't think it's a fun watch. If you don't really know better, maybe. But honestly, like, jokes aside, if you want to watch a good Warhammer 40,000 film series, look up Astartes on YouTube. It's a free free project made by a fan of the series of the universe. And he actually pays a lot of respect to Space Marines, has them being tactical, has them thinking things out, and it's a really good-looking watch, and it's a really good story.
It also accurately portrays how screwed a human is fighting a Space Marine. Because a Space Marine could punch you and cave in your rib cage.
That would be just like his stomach plug on the ground back there. I mean, I didn't even think that was possible.
God, I just remembered one of the stupidest.
And
I just remember one of the stupidest parts of that Ultramarine movie, where the one Marine gets the back of his head torn off, falls over, and the apothecary leans down to confirm head wound, fatal. His brain is missing. I think he's dead.
Chaos indeed. Black Legion.
Now we know our enemy.
Anyway, Shade and I really want to read the rest of this for Bad Fiction Monday. I've actually never read past chapter 2. Last time Shade and I tried reading this through, I got so frustrated after chapter 2 that we just ended it there. Until next time, remember, criticism is not necessarily a bad thing. You need to take negative criticism, or else you will never improve as a writer, as an artist, as really anything that you're trying to do creatively. On that note...
Well, speaking of criticism...
We would...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, on that note, we would love to hear your critique of our series.
The first 3 episodes, we all pre-recorded before we released them, just to give us a bit of a preparation. So if you're wondering, like, I suggested this in episode 1, why aren't they doing it in episode 2 or 3? That's why. But let us know what we could do to make things better. And let us know, of the 3 stories we read so far, which you'd be most interested in seeing continue. We can't say we'll immediately jump into it in episode 4, but, that feedback will definitely help us get prepared for what people want to see moving forward.
Personally, I am looking forward to reading more of My Immortal, and I really want to read more Space Ninjas. The Eye of Argon, I think, is a really interesting project. I actually might go, if there's not necessarily interest, I will probably go myself and read the rest of it, because that was legitimately my first exposure to Eye of Argon.
Which just makes it that much more special.
Indeed. But until next time, remember, learn to take criticism.
Learn to research
expand your vocabulary.
Learn to research what you're talking about.
And have fun. Don't necessarily stop yourself from doing something stupid, but, maybe think it through. I've been Zombo.
I've been Shaderaygun.
And you guys have a great morning, afternoon, evening, and night.
And a great Tuesday.